Welcome to Unifying Force. I'm Kat, joined by Dave and Geo. How's it going, everybody?
We are all here today, on time today. We have removed the curse of the daylight savings time until we mess it up again when Geo changes times in like 2 weeks.
Yeah, on the last Sunday of March. I'll be ready. Got it on the calendar. Yeah. Back reunited. The band is back together. Let's
Excellent.
go.
So the plan today is we are going to cover all the things that we were supposed to cover last time when daylight saving times removed it, and it ended up being me and Geo kind of railing at the universe about the silliness of this overly contrived time, this made up construct that we make it up and then we have to why mess with it? What are we doing?
Yeah. See some of our favorite time travel movies for reference. Back to the Future, Arrival.
I won't
Season
go
one
with
of True Detective.
favorite, but for whatever reason this week, one night, my wife, I came in and my wife had turned on Hot Tub Time Machine.
Yeah, I was almost about to say that one.
I'm just like, why are you watching this? No, it's just the level of classic cheese. I was like, okay, all about classic. Good morning. Pleasure to have you on with us this morning. But yeah, let's get into the stuff. Is what all the things that we missed and things. Biggest thing I think that we missed the whole time of was it's been so long since we've kind of been on here is award season, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, Darkwing. This is one of my classic Disney Parks shirt. This is for the meet and greet with Launchpad McQuack, which I don't know if it's still there or not, but it used to be cool. But anyway, award season, whoo. What's up with all the stuff? Geo, go.
Yeah, so that was it ends up being kind of a rush, and I think we may have touched on this outside of the broadcasting that we did a few weeks ago, but I think lots of the award season was a little bit more compressed this time because of the LA fires and the aftermath of that. So external factors condensing things quite a bit. But there were still, the Oscars happened on time the way it normally does, and some of the preceding awards shows shared weekends or even shared days, which was interesting. You'd get a cast and crew of a film like Anora, which ended up doing very well at the Oscars, and I think it was, and Kat can correct me on this, the Directors Guild Awards and maybe the Writers Guild Awards that were almost at
And
the
the
same
PGAs.
time.
I think there were
Guild,
some
yeah.
that people had to go across town from one to the other.
Yeah, they ordered a cavalcade of lifts and bolts and Ubers and scooped up everyone once they picked up the trophy on one section of town and jumped across to the other. So that was quite a unique thing that I had never heard of before.
So, okay, I'll go ahead and say is I'm not going to have a lot of comment on a lot of the films for the Oscars this year because it seems to me like a lot of it with moving to streaming, and I'm not going to the movies as much as I used to, is it seems like Oscar nominated films are far further and further removed from I kind of somewhat consider myself the general viewing public, but I'm a little more niche than some of that. So I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I mean, usually a lot of indie films don't get wide releases until after they get all their nominations.
Okay.
I did see Nora back in November because Tower Theater in Sacramento puts out some interesting things. So that was my favorite movie of the year. Thought that was fantastic. If more filmmakers would edit their own movies, then you would have a lot more people throughout the Oscars winning those same 4 awards that Sean Baker did because he was the first to do it for writing, directing, editing and co-producing his own movie. Yeah, some of the awards are a bit compressed, but unlike last year where Oppenheimer was the clear front runner, you didn't have any front runners this year. It was kind of like a crapshoot. And then after the whole Emilia Perez meltdown thing with that campaign, it's like that's sort of when Adora started emerging as a front runner. But it looks like even before that, it was, according to all the anonymous voter ballots, it was probably going to benefit from the preferential ballot system anyway.
So was there a big kind of push and stuff? Like I don't get regular network television anymore. It's all streaming all the time, which I don't.
No, there was not a network television push. You'd have to go out of your way to. I don't think I saw a single commercial for it. You just had to be kind of aware. I mean, they might have started advertising it once it got all those nominations because they re-released it in regular theater. Because I think that's a problem with more regular movie theaters these days is that they put out a lot of blockbusters and they don't do Oscar bait anymore as much because it used to be you'd have a ton of Oscar bait movies coming out the last week of December for like a few days in New York and LA to qualify, and they wouldn't get wide releases till January when they wouldn't really advertise them anymore. Well, they changed the rules at the Academy saying that you have to make a concerted effort to give it a wide release for a few weeks during the calendar year that it's nominated in. So you don't see that big glut of Oscar bait stuff anymore. And especially if you have like a big blockbuster movie coming out in December or whatever, those movies don't want to compete with it. So it's sort of a different kind of landscape. And so you see more movies from earlier in the year getting picked up.
Yeah, I mean, it used to be a place where you could go and you would actually, see in common places or areas is like, advertisements for movies. And it's like, oh yeah, here's what the Oscar buzz around this one is going to be this and that. And I've just started to hear less and less and less about that. Best thing that came out of the award season is the cat movie Float.
Flow, not Float. It was
okay.
A Latvian
I don't even know what that is.
It was a Latvian film that was made entirely from free animation software called Blender, which any of us can use.
I know Blender. Blender is, I have it because it's free.
Yeah, and it's just a cat, not anthropomorphic cat, just a cat surviving a flood with other furry friends. And it's not so much of a story per se. It's not like there's a climax. You're just kind of watching as it goes on. It's a cute movie, and they find a little interesting point to end it on. But I thought it was cute, not really cool that somebody made a whole movie like that. But it took them like nearly 5 years to make it because of and it looks almost like a painting that's animated a little bit because it's not like the same sharp type of Pixar animation, of course, because this is like a free thing. But it was really, really well done.
Oh, cool. I'll have to go and look back.
Conan made a lot of jokes about that because once it won the award for best animated film, he's like, Latvia's first Oscar, your move, Estonia, or other throughout the night.
Well, I mean, there are a lot of really cool animators and animation houses around the world doing amazing stuff like that. We had that talk months ago when Visions came out. Visions season 2 is just all these animation houses from different places around the world and getting their take on Star Wars related things was, I think that was cool. So why can't you see that in the Oscars?
Speaking of Star Warsy things, it occurred to me as I look now, this is the 88th episode, and I was looking for my Black Series figure of IG-88, and I could not find him.
Around
here somewhere. But,
a nice mascot. Yeah.
That's the mascot for today's episode.
Brought to you by IG-88. Kill. No, protect the baby.
Chris Forsyth says he wanted The Substance to get it. Yeah, Mike did too. Mike loved that movie.
Yeah, that was that one. I think I did see things about just like browsing because that was that a Netflix original?
No, it was a movie. It was an original theatrically released film. Got a wide release in September.
But they got it but it went to streaming super fast because it's been on streaming. Like I've been seeing it just in browsing.
It's available
my Fire TV opening
to rent. It's available to rent. Fire TV and Prime Video does a lot of when you're scrolling down the UI, whether it's like on the app, TV app, or on a device, they've got like entire rows that are promoted with recently released films, like
Mhm.
big releases, which usually have like a little yellow, at least in the UK EU region, there's a little yellow kind of wallet little symbol, which indicates that it's to rent or buy.
Oh yeah,
So
no, here in the US they don't do that. They just let you have to go all the way down the rabbit hole and go, "Oh, hey, I want to watch that." Click. Oh, it's going to be $30. No.
that's an unwelcome surprise at the end of your
It
search.
also it was made by Mubi, and they have good streaming deals. So
Mm,
I saw it in the theater though. It was pretty wild.
nice.
Yeah, it's an extreme film. I guess you'd call it a satire. I mean, it's hard to. Obviously, it's a horror film,
Yeah,
but
yeah, very surface level, but it was good.
There you go. Well, what else are over here? We're going. Oh yeah, love for Hot Tub Time Machine over here on the Instagram. It's like,
That was a fun
yeah,
one.
I mean, Hot Tub Time Machine. I think the funnest thing about that is that it gets the shout out in the Avengers movie or something. It was in Avengers about that being
Oh
like
yeah,
an
Endgame. Yeah,
accurate representation of time travel.
that was a good movie though. Hot Tub Time Machine for comedy. That was fun.
Like you said, it's I was saying, I think when you stepped away is my wife had it on for whatever reason when I walk in one night this week, and I'm just like, you're just randomly sitting down and watching Hot Tub Time? No, I searched it out. I was like, yeah, let's okay. So what else? What else from the award season? What else are your fun choices? Did they get Best Actor right, Best Actress right, or were there better choices?
yeah,
I
I
thought they
can.
got. Oh, you go first, Gio.
Oh no, I was just going to suggest I could just read them out, and then Kat, you can give us your.
Right. I was pulling up my list here on Letterboxd to remind myself what my favorites of the year were.
Uh-huh. In terms of, so we can go by best.
Oh, that's
picture.
right. That's right. Adrian Brody won for The Brutalist, which he's basically playing the same character he won for The Pianist. So it's like, okay, it's kind of like you've seen that before, but
yeah, I think
all right.
I haven't seen The Brutalist, but I've heard of mixed things about his performance. Actually, wasn't there some controversy over in post-production them using generative AI to alter people's accents to supposedly make them sound
to smooth out the
more,
accents, which is kind of weird.
More Hungarian or something.
Yeah.
Which is a really strange thing to do, and you'd hope it's a practice that stops immediately.
No, that probably happens all the time. I mean, you hear about it for one movie, then they're doing it for all sorts of them. But it's really no different than when they're using CG or other little things to smooth things out. They just don't tell you.
I guess.
So yeah, I mean, there was him. He was a front runner. Chalamet, I'm kind of surprised he got nominated. Maybe that was because of likability. Because it's like, well, Kingsley Ben-Adir was really good as Bob Marley for that movie that came out like a year ago, but nobody remembered it. It seems.
That's a really good shout, actually. I thought that was a great film, and I'm surprised it didn't. I guess the timing of its release wasn't favorable for the award season stuff.
I thought he was really good. I thought the movie was really safe when you think about how much of a good political firestorm Bob Marley's music and everything was. It felt at times like it was ticking boxes of a biopic. Oh, we have to have we have this, and it's like, But I think they kind of forgot about it, unfortunately, because it was released like I think Valentine's Day last year.
Yeah, it was definitely February, March time.
I thought Mikey Madison was great in Honora. She won that one. But Demi Moore was the clear, challenger for The Substance. That was pretty good.
Oh yeah, well, you put her in a movie and up for Best Actress, and she's going to be a contender just based on popularity or popular. I've heard of that alone.
The Actors Guild gave her the award for that. And she's like, this is the first thing I'd ever won, like ever, which is pretty cool. But my top three of the year were Honora, The Return, and Nosferatu.
Okay.
The Return was the one that Ralph Fiennes was in, about where he plays Odysseus and he's come back to have to deal with the suitors. And it's like a anti-war film, and it's really gritty, kind of slow, but I didn't mind that. And I thought that was quite good. And you had Juliette Binoche as Penelope and Marwan Kenzari as the lead suitor. I thought he was very good as a lead antagonist, but that movie didn't get much love.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm seeing Wicked for best production design, and I'm going like,
Yeah, that looked very fake and pastel-y, and I mean, I'm happy for Nathan Crowley because that's I think his 7th nomination and his first win. He's the guy who does all the set design for Christopher Nolan's movies.
yeah.
So it's like, okay, it's nice for him, but
I'm
even
just
things
like,
that I
there's
know they built
so
for
much
real look
source
fake.
material from to draw on. It's like, well, that's Wicked's been around forever, and you just kind of like translate that to the screen, and it's like, that's an interesting choice.
And again, things that they built for real just have this very CG. Like it looked like the whole thing was shot in the volume. I mean, I know it wasn't, but it just looks that way, but not necessarily in a great way.
oh dear.
Was it that were they like kind of paying an homage to the way the Wizard of Oz was set up? That kind of like 30s, 40s, just
Oh yeah, they wanted to look just like that,
but a sparklier.
I really didn't like that movie. I was bored stiff watching it. I'm
Wicked.
like, how do you take a 2.5-hour stage play and you adapt only the first act and you stretch that into 2.5 hours on its own? It's like, I don't know.
Yeah, that is one luckily thing that I've caught live on the West End.
Nice.
The Broadway version of Wicked, that was probably 2011. And it's good. It's fun. It's quite nice to have this backstory and expansion of these characters and growing the kind of the land of Oz quite a lot and adding some complexity to otherwise quite a simple, straightforward kind of good versus evil film in The Wizard of Oz. But I have no idea how it would fit across a 4.5 hour 2-film part 1, part 2 deal. It's just so strange. It felt a little bit long when I saw it in the West End. So yeah, I only found out I found out quite late in the kind of media blitz for the film Wicked that it was a part 1, and when I heard that, I just thought, nope. What are they doing? This is what they started ruining franchises with a part 1, part 2 about 10 years before this. And why is the curse come back? I thought Hollywood
still can't beat the Wiz.
Money.
It's the Wiz.
Mm-hmm.
But supporting actor and actresses Kieran Culkin and
that was the safest bet ever. He won everything throughout award season. He was really good in that movie too.
Yeah, if you've seen A Real Pain, tell us a little bit about it, because I think it's gone under the
So
radar.
it's kind of like a pseudo true story, because Jesse Eisenberg had his I think he said it was his aunt or his grandmother, and he always promised her that if he ever was filming a movie around Poland or whatever, he would go and visit her hometown. And he eventually did go there, and he went on the same tour that the characters do in the movie, and he wrote the script. And it's basically his character's living a stable life. He's married, he's got kids. He makes like digital ads, the ones that you kind of hate that pop up and block everything. And Kieran Culkin is his cousin who he hasn't seen in a long time, and they both decided to go to Poland on this Holocaust tour, and they're going to go see their grandmother's house. And they actually went to his actual aunt's house that he'd gone to on the tour, and they're arguing about, like they're on, like there's an instance where they're on this very nice first class train, and Kieran's like, does anybody notice the oddity and the irony that we as a bunch of Jewish people are on this really nice train riding through Poland on a Holocaust tour? And he just starts being like saying a lot of things like that and driving it, but he kind of grows on people, and Jesse's kind of getting annoyed by that because they're liking this very abrasive, but because he just has no filter, the Kieran character. But like they're walking along and they see one of the people in the tours walking by themselves. He's like, what do you think's wrong with her? And he's like, I don't know, maybe she's just enjoying the sunset. It's like, no, I'm gonna. So he walks up to her. It's like, hey, what are you doing, you effing moron? Like, why aren't you joining the other people? And she's not. But nobody's put off by him. They're like, oh, and it's really kind of funny and sweet. And interestingly enough, it's the first time they went to film at this a concentration camp, which has been kept in pristine condition, that always gets requests from Hollywood to stand in for other camps, and they're like, no, because we don't want even historical reenactors in Nazi uniforms here. Like that is
Right.
not going to
Okay.
happen.
Mhm.
But they said, well, we want to film here as what you guys actually do is you host tours. So we want to film a tour. I'm like, oh, okay. So they actually let them do that. And it's the first time that this campus appeared in a movie as itself, which was kind of neat. And so it kind of fluctuates between really great comedy and searing drama. And, the Eisenberg character doesn't like how, the whole Gen Z trauma porn thing, and everybody's got this trauma and stuff. Nobody needs to open up about everything all the time. And Kieran's kind of about that too, and they're kind of button heads. But I thought it was a pretty good movie. But Kieran was clearly the standout and the runaway with that. There was like nobody else was going to win that award that year. Cool. That was the safest bet. I recommend it. It's on Hulu for those who have that.
Yeah, I hope it becomes available here soon because UK, EU, we've got a lot of Hulu stuff clustered under Disney Plus, but it's not differentiated until you go into it and you see like a little Hulu watermark in the corner, for example, with I think like Abbott Elementary or Only Murders in the Building. These are little mini-series that are really popular. It is interesting how sometimes there's one person who just bulldozes through the award season getting everything and they're like a dead cert to win the Academy Awards. And then other times the script gets flipped at the last second. And I think that did happen, right? With Best Actress, with Mikey Madison kind of taking it away from Demi Moore, because I think Demi Moore won the majority.
Mikey won the BAFTA and Demi won the SAG, and so and Demi won the Golden Globe, but then she won the Oscar. But who was it that won supporting for actress?
Zoe Saldana.
Zoe Saldana.
I didn't see that movie because I don't have Netflix anymore. But she gave a really great speech, so there's that.
And here's what I'm looking at, like best visual effects and best sound. I think Dune Part 2, which I didn't see and am probably not going to see because I saw Part 1.
Part 2 is better than Part 1, but like visually it looks like a better movie. But it's still the same thing where they're spoon feeding the message to you. They're holding their hand. They're telling you what to think because. I mean, through all four of Denis Villeneuve's sci-fi films, I don't think he has much respect for the intelligence of his audience because he's always like jackhammering it into like this is what you're supposed to think and that kind of thing, rather than letting it be open-ended. But it's still it earned those two Oscars, visual effects and sound. So,
well, good. It good to hear that it's deserving of what there was because Part 1 was.
Oh yeah, it's like watching paint dry.
Part 1 was very sleepy. Let's say that.
I mean, and this is coming from someone who was like rewatched the original movie to watch that, and I was like, I think the original is better, and that is deeply disturbing.
The Sci-Fi Channel miniseries is really great too.
Okay, I don't know.
That's from the year 2000.
And is that separate? They did also Children of Men Children of Dune as a series. Is that right?
Yeah, they did that as the second series. But that's that was because I think the Sci-Fi Dune covered both Dune and Dune Messiah, and that's why they did Children of Dune as the second season. But being a miniseries, they had a lot more time to adapt it, and of course, it was a TV budget in the year 2000, so the effects aren't great in terms of the scale, but it was still a better adaptation in terms of story, character.
Yeah. You might be able to catch that on Prime Video on Fire TV actually, Dave, because it's available in this region, the mini series, the original, and then Children of Dune as well. But I'd still recommend Dune Part 2. I think it is worth seeing, even if Part 1 did not resonate at all. I think all the good parts of Part 1 are amplified in Part 2. Very literally at times with the sound and the music and the editing, but some of the issues are still there from Part 1. So character stuff is very middling and not very complex.
That was a big controversy. People are like, how did Denis Villeneuve not get nominated for Best Director? And I'm thinking maybe because the movie's so flat, you're not connecting with any of the characters. Because I think when I hear people praising it, they're always talking about the same thing, which is the sound and the visuals. And I'm like,
Yeah.
that's kind of an indicator that, they're not talking about the story or the characters, which is really what's supposed to endear you to it. And so,
Yeah.
is it really surprising when you're not getting Best Director if people aren't connecting that much with the material?
I'd say Dune Part 1 and Part 2 are like a really extended tech demo. So if you've got a brand new TV, like
this
a
is
60
how we try out our surround sound.
Yeah, exactly. You get a new 7.1 setup, or you've got everything on Bluetooth, and you just want to click it from your smartphone and have a lady screaming kind of Arabic-esque choral vocals at you while Hans Zimmer turns it up to 11 again. Then you can get that in spades with Dune Part 2. But I think it is visually spectacular enough to justify seeing it on a big screen and kind of experiencing it, even though again it's that Part 1 Part 2 thing I don't think was necessary.
No.
Well, I mean, you probably did have to do that with Dune, because there's just so much.
I think it could have been cut into a 3-hour film in one go.
The David Lynch version did the whole movie,
Yeah.
the whole book in one movie.
Yeah, and it was a super long.
I'm legally not allowed to speak.
Oh, that's great. So Naladoc regards the original Herbert books as like the Bible, and when he wasn't going to go see it because he's like, oh, it could be bad. And I'm like, but everybody's saying the visuals are great, you should go see it. And so I convinced him to see it, and he said the worst thing about the movie was the special thanks credit to Brian Herbert and Kevin J. Anderson. They've been just ravaging and raping that material for nickel and dime profit and just making crap. And it's just so much shit has come, kind of like with all of the bad stuff of the Star Wars expanded universe, where they just kept printing stuff for the sake of making money.
Nope, let's do this. Let's talk about the third stormtrooper from the left, and
exactly.
Story. Here's your novel. Here's your thing. Go.
And that was what they did with the whole Dune Prophecy show that dropped in December. It was largely changing things around and working from Brian Herbert's ideas, and it's like, no.
Yeah, I'm still on the fence about that one because I wanted to dive into it. It looked great, but then that doesn't really mean anything else beyond aesthetics.
But yeah,
with the Dune
they
films.
spent money on it. It's like, okay, but is it any good?
All right.
Yeah, I got into the second episode and it just felt convoluted, but not intriguing in any way. Yeah. So I just stopped it because you don't have the impetus to continue.
Yeah.
Here we go. Recent film looks great. No soul. Ripped the nuance out of everything out of the books. That's how TV removed everything that required any real explanation. We were talking about that before you came on, is how they were just like, no, here, beat you over the head with, this is what's happening. This is what's happening. This is what you should think about what's happening. And that is why I have not watched part 2, because again, I saw that in part 1 and I was like, no, pass.
Yeah.
I have started watching, I think we were talking about like early 2000s, late 90s or something, sci-fi. I've started watching, and I don't think I ever saw more than an episode or two to the beginning. I was watching Falling Skies with Noah Wyle, and talk about like, the TV animation budget for that, special effects budget's like, But the story, however, is somewhat captivating.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty much all it covers the awards talk, I guess.
It does. Let's talk about Gio. You had not seen a movie that's not going to get awards talk. but
sad face.
But it's a big blockbustery movie. You hadn't seen Captain America when we were discussing it before.
Yeah.
You have now. So what do we think? So Noah Wyle, by the way, is back in The Pit, which I am also watching. That's why I went back and found Falling Skies. The Pit is essentially, they missed the part where he's not playing Dr. John Carter older, but he's an ER resident or whatever, a director or whatever. I don't know whatever terms, but he's back in the ER in The Pit, and it's a series on, I think, Max.
Yeah.
And go check that one out. So Noah Wile's back, man.
Yeah, each episode is 1 hour in the
Yes,
ER.
1
And
hour in the ER in the shift. It's like literally what's
Oh,
going on.
really?
yeah,
Yeah.
and each
That's fascinating.
there's certain like actual doctors who have YouTube channels and like, man, this is like one of the most realistic medical traumas ever.
So yeah,
that'd
it's,
be really
I
cool.
watch it with my wife, who is in pharma now, but used to be an EMT and a nuclear medicine technologist has been forever. And she's sitting there going like, "Oh, ooh, that." Yeah. But anyway, that's what happened to Noah Wiley. But what happened to Captain America? Gio, what do you think?
What did happen to Captain America? Let's see.
That's the question.
Well, his story ended perfectly from a Steve Rogers perspective in Avengers Endgame, so it's going to be hard to really add to that without feeling like Marvel has kind of it set the table so well with phases 1, 2, and 3, and the whole Avengers arc with Thanos. I think it was a perfect ribbon tying gift to the audiences, to casual fans, to hardcore fans, to any kind of enthusiast of superhero films. So the struggles with Phase 4 and I guess it's Phase 5 now have been, very well storied and discussed a lot online, and it doesn't seem like critics or audiences are loving much of what's come out of Marvel recently. I would say Brave New World is it's a competent film for the most part, but it's a strange hodgepodge of many different older ideas from the MCU that seem to randomly come together in this new kind of stirred up pot. And I don't really understand how or why they decided to bring some of these older characters or older story beats back in. The film, because it's I guess we can talk full spoilers because it's been a while.
It's been that. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, although I just checked it was released February 14th here, so just Valentine's time, which is not that long ago.
It was February 14th here as well.
Yeah. So I mean, for the one part, I'm glad with Marvel's blockbusters, at least you've got the international release that's coordinated. I think it'd be nice to have, just going back to award season stuff, and we were mentioning how it's hard to catch some of these, either like Oscar bait films or genuine, kind of indie character dramas. It's hard to catch them in mainstream cinemas and theaters nowadays, for various reasons. And so it's nice to be able to try and take in a film roughly at the same time as the wider public. And so I'm grateful that I managed to see it, 2 weeks after the fact. I'm glad I saw it on the big screen. I think there's enough kind of pop and spectacle to justify it. I don't understand why you would put the Red Hulk reveal in the trailer. Still, it's something that DC were doing with their films when they were trying to do the DCEU, with like Dawn of Justice showing Doomsday in the trailer and Wonder Woman, and just shooting everything off, firing all
the
cannons.
Flash movie where you saw everything that was good in the entire movie in the trailer.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely been the case, and I thought Marvel and Disney had avoided that, but it seems like maybe they didn't have confidence enough in their own project, so they decided, let's reveal everything and get bums on seats. I really like Sam Wilson. I think Anthony Mackie's great. I think he elevates most material, and he does it again here in Brave New World. The storyline is it's trying to go kind of political thriller, I guess, but there's not much political anything substantive in it. It does feel a little bit like the Winter Soldier in the kind of nefarious plot behind the scenes and some, villainous mastermind pulling the strings.
Yes.
Except I felt it bordered on the ridicule a lot more. The Winter Soldier was very grounded, and there's so many reasons why it worked well in that film. And I think now, because we're in an era of the MCU that's got huge scale, universal leveling affairs and planetary beings, you've got, the elementals in one corner, which does come back into this film.
It does.
tangentially, but in a way that I think was
and unexplained. That's
No, you
my
mean the Eternal?
that-
You mean the Eternals?
yes, the Eternals. Yeah,
you expected people to actually have watched that movie. Okay, the two movies that people should have seen to get this movie would be the original Hulk, which we thought Disney was sweeping under the rug entirely. Like that was the second movie in the MCU.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it came out
Yeah.
months after Iron Man.
No, one month after Iron Man.
Yeah.
The Incredible Hulk. Yeah, Ed Norton, Liv Tyler.
And we're like, no, surely not. And then the Eternals, which again, 4 people saw.
Yeah.
And then they over explain the plot points from Hulk, I think, because
Mhm.
you know Harrison Ford constantly refers to Betty as his daughter, like over and over and over and over again.
For a character who
Well-
you never like see in the movie in any substantial role, but we have to constantly talk about.
But then they don't explain the entire events of why there's this giant island that is like an alien creature that's mummified or whatever in the ocean. It's like
Yeah.
I saw that movie, but I don't know that anyone else did. Like that was the whole entire movie. My wife is sitting there going, "What the hell is that thing? What's the deal? It's like, okay, look, this is how they're trying to introduce the X-Men.
Yeah, so let's talk about it. They bring in the element that everyone's been wanting to talk about, but hasn't officially done so. We got an adamantium reference, and it's specific and it's explicit, and it's something that the whole MCU world knows about, because there's a struggle to be there first and claim the natural resources or extraterrestrial gold.
Captain America too. Yeah.
Captain America Hulk too. That's that kind of works. The Incredible Sam Wilson.
But the weird thing is that the movie's not even about Sam Wilson. He's like the vessel through which the story happens around. I'm like, dude, this is a Captain America movie. You got to take a strong stance on something.
Should have been, and there was so much comic book material. It's like it's not that. Critics and people were saying, "Oh, this is forces. They're making everybody Captain America. Why'd they make?" It's like comic books, MFer. Do you read them?
Yeah,
because this has been around a long time.
And not to mention, in terms of the what was I going to say? I forgot what I was going to say.
Okay, but I mean, it's like that had been. It's a great. They shoved too much junk into one movie. Is if you just told a Sam Wilson Captain America story, great. I mean, you're plugging this, you're plugging that. The adamantium you're throwing in there, which I think it's going to make timelines problematic. It's like, okay, now but then they don't care about timelines because.
Well, I think they're 86ing all those timelines in the next 2 Avengers movies.
Yeah.
And getting back to, because it seems like the reason they brought the leader back in this movie is because I think it was going to originally be a race for more super soldier serum, and then at some point they changed their mind because Feige's like, no, we've got the X-Men rights, and I want it. Because you can tell that Feige wants to get to X-Men. Like, he's been excited about that for a long time, to get back to that. And this is like the only movie where Feige did not give an interview on the red carpet. He just kind of made a beeline from the car to the door. And it's like, yeah, let's just, and I think they dumped this in this month, one, because it was Black History Month. So, Sam Wilson is Captain America, put that out. And they want to build and they knew that Daredevil was coming, and they want people to focus on Daredevil and Thunderbolts and just get this out of the way. Because Harrison Ford, I think,
played like Isaiah Bradley, I think was.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah, people are like, you should have had Isaiah with him fighting Red Hulk in the end. It's like that was right there, and you didn't take it. And Isaiah being obviously the best thing about that movie, but I don't know. And I just found the Danny character that they're trying to do a Batman and Robin thing with him, where he's like looking up to Sam, but he's too goofy and just too juvenile, and it was just really cringy. And And it's like, really, this guy's been failing at everything, and you're gonna tell him he's part of the Avengers now as the new Falcon? It's like, no.
Right.
Yeah.
Uh,
Much to learn he still has.
Yes.
Yeah, I think his humor didn't really work, and I wish they'd looked. I feel like the Winter Soldier was a perfect template for this film to springboard further and move the MCU along, and it doesn't seem like they looked at what worked in that film at all, aside from the generic kind of genre feel of it being, oh, there's a conspiracy, there's some kind of puppet master, there's some kind of subterfuge going on, and it's going to cause potentially like a world war situation.
Mhm.
And we almost had that within the Winter Soldier, but it was kept at a reasonable scale. It's pretty much just in a helicarrier above Maryland, right? Washington DC. Whereas here you've got like a almost finale that's the USA versus Japan naval battleship style, and then you got like you have our Captain America and our new Falcon genuinely just buzzing around, a lot of CGI, and I felt like the action sequences did not work at all in that.
And a lot of that
sequence.
that battleship combat thing that was done in like X-Men First Class or something. It's like a lot of it
true.
seemed like we've seen this. This has been done. Is why did we threw this in? Is this is going to happen? Is this we do that? Like one of the best cameos in there was Sebastian Stan. You throw the Winter Soldier in like a heartfelt moment after Falcon and Winter Soldier is like, oh, buddy, and it's like, oh, I appreciate that. But
yeah, that was one of my
for Congress.
Scenes.
Well, again, timelines are going to be problematic, and that's what I'm looking at. He's supposed to be running for Congress, but he's going to be. He looked like he's got the shield in Thunderbolts because there was a Thunderbolts trailer before this in the theater that I saw. But it looked he had a round shield, I think, and I was like, "Is he Captain America in Thunderbolt? What's up?"
I don't know.
Now that you mention it, I was really disappointed that I saw no MCU trailers before this film.
See, we had Thunderbolts.
Yeah, I mean, it's perfect to put in Fantastic Four and Thunderbolts. I mean,
I
it's next on the horizon.
Actually, I think we had Fantastic Four as well, because I think that's
both
where
of those trailers.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on here. But Disney's influence on advertising is waning, maybe. Yeah, I think this film also wasn't marketed very well, and I mentioned that with the trailer, spoiling Red Hulk. And you mentioned, releasing it in February. It's a weird time to release this kind of film. I remember Captain America.
It's the timeline. You got to get it out because you got to get Thunderbolts out, and then you got to get.
I think there's an element of ripping the Band-Aid off. Like, we just need to get rid of this, and it's not like they're going to take a tax write-off on it because we see how much that pisses off people. But it's like, let's just get rid of this and don't talk about it. And like, people theorize that what was it? A few weeks later, you had all the alleged concept art from Avengers Doomsday get leaked, and people are like, I bet anything Disney Marvel did that deliberately to shift the conversation from Cap 4 to getting excited about the new stuff because there's no buzz of any enthusiasm around Cap 4. I mean, the plot was decent. I mean, it had it's like the Skyfall plot, basically. Harrison Ford was pretty good, but again, it can't make up its mind what it wants to be.
This was a passable movie. This wasn't like, a Raspberry Award kind of thing. It's just like you watch, they've made really interesting choices, making it a sequel to Edward Norton Hulk references and things. But they'd already kind of started mentioning a lot of that because the Abomination was in She-Hulk. So another thing that it would have helped if you'd seen, which not a lot of people thought.
Yeah. I almost wondered if...
Yeah, I mean, I put it in the bottom tier of their films. I mean, it wasn't that.
Yeah.
I watched it, which puts it a step above I didn't ever finish Moon Knight, and I didn't ever finish what was the Sam Jackson and the character
Secret Invasion.
Secret Invasion. I didn't even finish that.
But that the people have been saying, for those who have watched it, that's something they're going to completely ignore going forward. Because there's apparently a character in there who could do literally just about anything, and they're like, yeah, they can't like that's like an end thing. Like the reason they didn't bring in the Living Tribunal to Endgame was because they said once you do that, you can't go back from that, and you can't really tell any stories after you bring that character in. And Secret Invasion does something like that, and it's like, no, that was clearly part of the Chapek era where you have to, quantity over quality. You have to put something out, and that kind of thing. And so,
Yeah, I'd put Brave New World in the lower half. I wouldn't put it in the lowest tier of MCU films because there have been some blunders. I don't think they fumbled this film entirely. I do think it feels like it's been worked on by a couple of different teams, or like a couple of different individuals pulling it in different ways, and so the result just feels like a slight smorgasbord of different ideas that don't gel together very well. But
I think it feels better than Iron Man 3 to me.
No, I'd say it's better than. I thought Iron Man 3 was a better made movie than Brave New World.
This
Thor
film,
the Thor the Dark World, that's got to be like the bottom. And even the Incredible Hulk with Edward Norton, it's like you're basically recycling the same plot we had just seen from the Ang Lee version, but it's more grounded, or trying to feel that way. But it doesn't, like, that movie literally begins with him transforming into the Hulk for the first time in the opening. Like, they didn't spend any time on all the origin and stuff because they figure, oh, well, you've seen this already. It's like, well, the problem with that is you knew with the MCU you're trying something that you want people to be revisiting forever. Nobody's going back and revisiting that Ang Lee movie. So it's like, maybe you should have spent more time on that character in his own movie.
Yeah. And speaking of which, it does feel like Sam Wilson is sidelined for a lot of this film.
Yes.
And the trailer, the trailer kind of sold it as him being central, which is what you'd hope in a Captain America film with Captain America. But him not having as much of an impact on the plot overall, and Isaiah Bradley, having that great scene with the assassination attempt and chase through Washington, but then just pretty much left in jail. It did feel like a complete waste. And I thought watching it, it seemed as if they were building towards bringing him out and having some kind of victorious scene, and having him join Sam Wilson fighting Red Hulk at the end would have been perfect. But I don't know. The decision making to me is a bit frustrating and curious as well.
Right.
It might also be a leftover of the Chapek era, where not only are we putting out shows, we got to get more movies out, and they just kind of did this. It's just like, because they're like, what exactly happens in this movie? Not much. And it's like the movie's supposed to be set in the real world, but you're trying to tell us that the Japanese Navy is the big threat here, going all the way from Japan to the Indian Ocean. Like, no, they don't have that kind of Navy or military in real life. That doesn't track. But
do you think they changed nationalities as world events were going on? Or
in the script at some point, maybe.
I feel like it might have been a different nation, and they decided to change it to try and avoid controversy or not have that as a big talking point in the film. But maybe they should have left it in because it would have distracted the discourse from even worse things. Who knows? Speaking
of other bad movies that didn't need to be made, Snow White came out this weekend.
Yeah, if we're going to talk about Disney's issues and controversies and things not lining up well for them, I think Snow White it's a good platform.
I have not seen that yet. I know you have, Kat. I've seen your
it's like
that. So go ahead and get into that one.
Yeah, tell us how you really feel.
The first 24 minutes takes you up to the scene when the huntsman tells her to run off into the woods. And that first 24 minutes feels like real Disney on Ice, where everybody's like singing dialogue. Even like for some reason, her father, everything he says is like lyrical, even if there's no song attached to it, and it's very fantasy. Like I'm like, okay, you're doing this, but it was really cringy and not very good. Gal Gadot is like the worst thing about the movie. Like she can't act. It's like this is an easy role. It's the evil queen and the witch. It's like and it's just a mind-numbingly bad performance from her. Rachel Zegler was actually fine as Snow White. Like, she's good. The dwarves were fine. It's like, okay. I mean, you could tell that all the CGI was a bit rushed in this movie, but they didn't when it comes to like all the CG animals, they don't try and go the Lion King route, trying to make it look real. They made it look like animated, like Disney kind of characters. So like, okay, that's a good decision.
It should be.
Makes sense.
Like,
Yeah.
Right. And when it started adhering to the source material, when she runs off into the woods for the most part, it's like, okay, the movie's doing pretty fine. Altering dial, adding verses to classic songs that you didn't need to add verses to. It's like, dwarves aren't really great singers, but it's just there's no soul in this movie, and it's like, oh, we have to completely change. Right when you think you're going to get to the part where the dwarves are going to chase the evil witch queen through the woods, it's like, no, we're going to pivot and tease almost like a Snow White and the Huntsman thing, where we have to go back to the kingdom and rise up and fight the queen, and they put the whole thing. And they build up to this whole thing that's going to happen, and then they don't go that route, and they instead have it be a very fantasy type. Oh God, what was I watching just the other day that was the same kind of thing, where the princess is like, "Oh, you used to be this type of person and good, and now you're evil, and you did this, and and I'm like, this doesn't feel like there's no reason nothing. Everything's so flat. There's no reason to care about anything, and the CG's rushed. Gal Gadot's awful. New songs aren't very good. It's just you can tell that they went through multiple directors.
Greenlit and let that through. I'm like, here's the one thing: is if anyone is ever going to support shelving a movie, taking a tax write-off, getting rid of it, and burying it under 50 yards of concrete, it's taking Walt's baby, the foundation of this company, and rushing it and not doing it correctly and just kind of half-assing it.
Okay, that's right. It's the same thing in the Aladdin remake when Jafar becomes Sultan at the end, and he orders Hakim to arrest the real Sultan, and he decides he's going to do it. And Jasmine tells him, "You used to be this and that, and the Sultan means so much to you, blah, blah, blah." And it's basically like the same thing in the climax in this movie, where Snow White is talking to all the farmers to the evil queen in order to be soldiers and reminding them of who they were and how great everything used to be. And I'm like, this whole movie is so flat. And again, it's funny how many people were bitching about, Rachel Zegler and the dwarves, and that they both turned out to be the best things about the movie. And it's just, but you're right. Like Snow White is the cornerstone of this franchise, of this whole Disney success story. Yeah. And they made just a very soulless flat. I mean, Dopey was kind of neat. They did something neat with Dopey. I'm like, okay, you get little points for that. But it's just so and it's not like nobody's really liking it. And all the toxic fandom is going to say, haha, Victory is garbage. But they're going to say that for the wrong reasons because they're fucking morons.
Well, I mean, all of the live action adaptations. Cinderella, I think, is one of the few that had some of the same kind of spectacle and whimsy and stuff of the original animated.
Yes,
I liked pieces of Beauty and the Beast.
Mm-hmm.
But for the vast majority of it, stop, for the love of God, stop.
Yeah, Naladoc is really hitting it on the head with these latest few comments here.
Oh yeah, let's see what we got here.
Disney is a corporation designed to profit from what they own. That's it. That's what all their IPs have become. They produce nothing new, so there will be nothing to remake 30 years from now. Just remakes of remakes of remakes. Disney does not give a shit about Walt. Yeah, that's true.
I mean, I'm talking like even from a business perspective, okay, is your Disney fans, the fandom does respect Walt. And from a business perspective, if you had put enough effort into it to make an amazing remake, throw out none of the stops, put in all of your resources to the animation, and put your best people on it for an indeterminate the amount of time that you needed to do it, you would make $1 billion. Okay. Yeah. I mean, just because of the level of that, but you're gonna go for the quick buck. You're gonna just kind of we need to do this and that, and we've changed our concept on this 47. I think this is the largest thing, and we talk about this all the time. You're putting too much corporation and this group and that group and that group all have to put all that stuff together.
Mhm.
It
Well, I think a part of it is that for some
doesn't
reason,
work.
when some of these other remakes were making $1 billion, they just decided to go for it and they stopped caring. Because, like you said, Cinderella worked because you had Kenneth Branagh helming that. Favreau's Jungle Book was successful because he actually tried to adapt different story, do some little different things.
Yeah.
It wasn't a shot-for-shot thing. But
Yeah.
these other ones have just been so lifeless because it's like, oh, we made $1 billion on those movies. Let's just just keep cranking them out.
Yeah.
And like, I think at one point, Guy Ritchie, who made Aladdin, was attached to do this, and then he dropped out and got replaced with Mark Webb, whose career has gone nowhere since he did those 2 Andrew Garfield Spider-Man movies. So it's like they didn't farm out for good talent to even make this movie. And
Well, I'll go with that
I
one.
just-
Aladdin, I didn't hate the live action Aladdin. They
I
did
watched
the
that. I think
I
the
liked
weak
it.
link in the live action Aladdin was Jafar. He was just not intimidating, soft soap. It's like,
Right.
no.
I mean,
Yeah.
they did the
Very
best that
Disney
they
on Ice.
could with no Robin Williams, with making up with him with Will Smith
Yeah.
was
was
as good
different.
as it was going to get.
It was different enough to
Yes.
kind of divorce your mind from the Ron Williams.
And that made $1 billion
Untouchable.
as well.
Yeah.
That was successful. And that's why they wanted Guy Ritchie to do it. But I don't know why he dropped out of Snow White. But it's like, yeah, they just kind of did this as a rushed hatchet job. And if you look at the timeline, it's like the people who've actually worked on the movie were saying, well, the dwarves were always going to be animated. And that the leaked set photos of the 7 beatniks were, the bandits in the movie, which is true. And they actually do have one little person actor in the movie as one of the bandits. And it's like, okay, but I wouldn't be surprised if they added him later after the controversy with, them saying they're not hiring, that kind of thing. But again, it's just, I'm like, there's there's no life in this movie at all. And it's not tracking well either. So this one is not going to do the gangbusters business that the other did.
It surprises me that Gal Gadot is a bad actress because she really... I didn't think I was going to like her as Diana Prince because I would be Linda Carter until the day I die as Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
other than her physicality and the fact that she's just a teeny tiny woman instead of a large Amazon, what you would think of, I thought she did really well as Diana Prince and Wonder Woman. I thought that worked, and it's shocking to think that. It's like I put up. I'm a '90s kid. I won't see nothing that they remake again. Is like, the Lion King remake was like, I saw Mufasa, and
that was saying they got Barry Jenkins, and he didn't bring any of his unique.
Yeah, it was okay. Mufasa having Lin-Manuel Miranda destroyed Moana 2 because he should have been over there working on that.
Yeah, and he was really bad at the songs of Mufasa. But Chris says he will always cherish my grandfather taking me to see The Lion King opening weekend because he wanted to see it too. And I remember that movie. I remember going to see that movie and going to see Aladdin originally. Those were great movies.
Yeah, I mean, I was far more of an adult than I should have been wanting to go see but it was the Disney Renaissance, man.
Right.
Is go see Aladdin in theaters, so The Lion King in theaters, The Little Mermaid. The Little Mermaid is quite possibly, the animated Little Mermaid is quite possibly my favorite film of all time.
Right there.
To
awesome.
see. And the remake hurt my soul on so many levels.
This was
yeah,
really solid. That is a gorgeous poster, by the way.
It is. Is that the remake?
Yeah.
Steelbook live action.
Naladoc asked if Jafar was as campy gay as he was in the original. I never saw. No, they made him a really young, like he's like clearly, like when you hire like the guy who kisses up to you all the time in the office, like the young 8. He's kind of like that.
They were trying to go, I think, my opinion, as far away from it being like an Arab stereotype that you could, and they were trying to get away from that. And that's
why the Sultan has no personality. They didn't want him to be a
different
Indian.
direction.
Yeah.
They were trying to be cautious, and it's not that they shouldn't, because him being a complete and total stereotype would have been wrong.
Yeah,
but you had to come up with something else that was not what they hit.
I think they were trying to go for. Well, actually, no. But this is probably me justifying it after the fact. But it felt like there was a moment in the film where Aladdin and Jafar connected, and Jafar kind of felt like an Aladdin, either a character from Aladdin's past, or
Right, that was a great scene.
yeah, or almost Aladdin a few years later down the line having made all the wrong decisions. And if
Right.
they just built on that, it would have been fantastic and unique. Very
Right,
different
because
to
he's
the
like,
original.
"Oh, I used to be a street light like you," and shows him that he's a pickpocket and a thief too.
Yeah.
And it's like, "Oh, you conned your way into this position as vizier from being originally one of the con." And that's something that all these Disney remakes do. They add some interesting twist with the villain that doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know, but
See,
they wanted to
this is what
avoid.
made the movie is Jafar was actually the street rat, and he got the lamp, and he made his 3 wishes, and this is what happened to him, and he became this from his 3 wishes,
Right.
and that's why. Or he made 2 wishes or something and had 1 left, and that's why he wants the lamp back, and that kind of thing.
Yeah, you just look at the amount of heart and soul in the original and the intensity and stuff in the climax and everything, and it's like then you watch the remake and it's like, it feels like we're going through the motions,
But yeah, I mean, you're
there was
right.
no finale.
The point made earlier
especially.
is, what are they going to do? Remakes of remakes. What are they going to remake 30 years from now to do it? Who knows? I mean,
Toy Story live action.
They will do it. Don't say that we're cutting that out.
It's going to be the Pixar films
in the universe, but you're right.
It's going to be the Pixar films in live action, and people will watch WALL-E live action and be like, "This is like a weird version of 2001: A Space Odyssey."
Well, it's like what is it? The upcoming How to Train Your Dragon live action remake, where the dragon looks like the same as it does in the cartoon.
Yeah,
yeah.
Because the CGI is enough to, it's going to be that. Now that one, people are actually excited about. Is at least some people, like the TikTok generation, because of the actors that they have managed to do that, and they put them on the con circuit kind of before the movie comes out. We saw the kid that's gonna play the lead at Superhero Con in Texas. And he was there basically because he's like online. It's the most TikTok generation kid thing ever. He's online best friends with the kid who's the new Percy Jackson in the Percy Jackson show. And before this con, they had never met in real life, but they're best friends.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's
And it was endearing and in a really weird way, but the kid
isn't Percy Jackson isn't Percy Jackson a Disney property?
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah,
right, because the Dragon series is DreamWorks, so it's like I don't know, cross promotion, I guess. I don't know, but
I mean, they were there together at the con and they were hanging out but it's so I don't know.
But we've heard that too, where executives will make hiring decisions based on how big your social media following is, which is just insane to me. It's it's just.
Oh dear. I know that happens in reality TV. I was hoping that wouldn't happen in
translation scripted. Next week on the Unifying Force, we're all fired by the VCN because no one follows us on the social media.
I found a little roundup of. It's an article in the Times called Snow White, How the Fairy Tale Became a Nightmare for Disney. The live-action reboot has become a poisoned apple, dogged by controversy, warring cast members, and now appalling reviews. How did the studio get into this mess? We've kind of discussed how the studio's got into this mess.
How did the studio get into this mess? Is making decisions by committee and too big a committee. But that's the level of all of the things.
Here's a nice zinger as well. I'll just also read out from the article. And if anyone's interested, it's by Ed Potton in the Times. Among a string of one-star reviews, the Times described it as a new low for cultural desecration. The Guardian called it exhaustingly awful, and the Independent lazy and visually repellent. So, screaming endorsement for Snow White.
So over on Instagram, I just flipped back over to Instagram. I can't put it up on the screen because of the way our technology works. Hunter Reed is talking about that he's looking forward to Lilo and Stitch. Now let's talk of that. We're talking about all the live actions and the things. This is what they've got going. And I mean, I suppose this would be a place where they could go 30 years in the future. Lilo and Stitch was a great movie, but Lilo and Stitch had hours and hours and hours and hours of more content from the Disney afternoon. Is they could have those properties of their TV shows to go ahead and bust into live action or bust into feature film stuff. Here I'll say, like, this is a Lilo and Stitch household here. Is like, we went to MegaCon Orlando and we weren't going to the parks, but what did we have to do for our breakfast on Sunday morning before we drove home is we went to the Polynesian to go to Ohana just so we could, selfies with Lilo and Stitch.
Nice.
We love that food. That is great breakfast. Ohana, if you have never done an Ohana breakfast, do that.
Yeah.
But I think you're kind of hitting it on the head. Is the actress that plays Nani doesn't appear to be kind of very Nani like. The actor that is cast as David, doesn't quite hit it. Lilo so far looks cute and like, kind of the same, what's the word, just smarmy, kind of older than her years kind of thing. And this Stitch, I think they've reworked Stitch since the original version of it. They've gone back over it. This Stitch looks pretty good. And the kind of, I have hope for it, is what I'm saying.
It looks like it's better, but I'm reading about the box office, and it looks like it bombed. 43 million domestic and 87 million worldwide for Snow White's opening weekend. Which is, yeah.
No, considering I'm sure what they put into that's.
Oh yeah, between like around 209 or it's anywhere between 210 and 270. So it's, yeah, it's just.
So
hopefully
Gio had a quick power hiccup there, so he's hoping to.
Hopefully this means they'll stop doing these live action remakes, because I don't know, Lilo and Stitch looks like it might be better, but
they won't.
I mean, Snow White, it's like somebody needs to call them out for how much you botched the cornerstone of.
Yes, I mean that needs to happen. They won't stop doing it. Like Chris Forsyth earlier was saying that, I won't watch any of the 90s things. What if they roll out with their live action version of a Goofy movie and we get Powerline in real, but we get like a real Powerline band. It's like, see, that's the only.
Yeah.
But
well, I momentarily cut out.
We were talking while you were out. Gio, is, I don't know if you heard it or not, live action Lilo and Stitch. Hunter Reed mentioned, and it's like,
yes,
from TV spots and stuff, which I have been seeing. There have been ads and stuff for that, but I think they may be just before when I'm watching Disney Plus movies. That may be the only place that I'm seeing it. I'm not sure.
Okay.
But I think I'm seeing a lot of clips of it that they're putting it out there, maybe on TikTok. That might be some of the ads that I'm seeing.
Perhaps.
But I have hope for that one.
Right.
Oh, another thing about Snow White is that the dwarves have literally zero role in the climax whatsoever. It's like, why do you even have them in the movie? Like, oh, she goes to live in the forest with them for a bit, and we're going to tease that they might do something, but they don't. No,
Yeah, it's
trying to think, do they in the original though? I'm not sure.
Just on the Lilo and Stitch part.
Go ahead.
I saw the Super Bowl advert with Stitch running rampant across the field, which I thought was an awesome TV spot. I really loved that, and I did my homework, and it just so happens that I finally watched Lilo and Stitch fully from beginning to end for the first time, because I'd seen the second half quite soon after it came out, but I kind of caught it while it was just on TV live. So yeah, I had the full experience I managed to watch that last week. It's a fantastic film. I loved it. I think it's an
absolutely, it is a
absolute.
fantastic film.
It's yeah. I think it's a crown jewel, not just in Disney's crown, but in just animation generally.
Mhm.
It's so much more sci-fi than I realized, because the
Yeah.
beginning is like 10 minutes of otherworldly alien goodness, and it's great how it almost reminded me a bit of the Iron Giant in that they've taken a created individual and then had those almost philosophical questions of its purpose, its
Mhm.
identity. It's almost like an existentialism, which I did not expect in a film called Lilo and Stitch. But I found it fascinating, and the fact that you have the kind of evil mad scientist creator of Stitch intending for him to be, you know, this super weapon, and he turns out to be, well, a lot more than that. And
well, there
I
are
think,
hours and hours of more content with the Lilo and Stitch cartoon show that were
right.
it was really fun. I remember it being really fun with, like, you know, Mr. Bubbles and the aliens and trying to keep the day-to-day wacky adventures for their
Yeah.
sitcom.
Mr. Bubbles is, I think, one of my all-time favorite supporting characters in a Disney film. He's excellent. Ving Rhames. From the moment he speaks, from the moment he appears,
Indeed.
you know you're in for something different and special. Yeah, I think Lilo and Stitch is a straight 10 out of 10 film.
Well, hopefully this one will be better. The shots that we've seen so far, some of them they could and they should try and redo some of the classic surfing scenes and stuff. Like they've shown, oh, here's the surfing scene in the animated movie, here's the surfing scene here, and it's like, oh.
Yeah,
But
I have some hope for the CG and the visuals to be corrected a little bit.
But like Stitch himself
time.
looks reasonable and
Yeah.
and believable.
Yeah, he looks really good as the live action CG. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's great. I think it kind of reminds me of a situation almost what you have with Detective Pikachu and what you have with the Sonic films. And I think they've brought the balance between them quite well.
Yeah, because original Sonic looked like garbage, and
yeah,
they brought it back, and it was like, oh,
yeah.
I think they had that level of trial and error with Stitch. I think at some point too. What? You have no knowledge? Okay, you need to go watch the original Lilo and Stitch. I mean, that is an excellent film.
I think they needed to rewrite the whole climax of that movie. It's pretty weak.
Well,
yeah.
Okay, it's E.T. the extraterrestrial, but
I think it's fine. I think it fits in with what the film had. It could have been a little bit more provocative as an ending. It does tie up nice and sweetly, but I think it was quite a saccharine and feel-good film anyway, and it needed that because the middle act is quite depressing. I will say, you know, the acknowledgement that Lilo is kind of a goofy, oddball character and she doesn't quite fit in, and she's completely aware of that, which is surprising for any kind of kids film.
And I mean, I think in the larger like Disney culture is they put a whole lot of stuff really into the culture as Ohana means family. It's like, yes. I mean, I think it's less for you know, normies, but for like Disney people, it's an amazing message that's overarching, and it's really saturated that.
Yeah, there's I was surprised at how much there was an undercurrent of realism and sadness. What with the social worker situation, the absence of parents. It's not just one parent missing this time, or it's both, and it's not really acknowledged much. It's kind of kept vague and nebulous. But I think the film works better because of that. The more focus is more on the sisters themselves. So yeah,
like it's for kids. How much of the It's for Kids content is traumatic everywhere? I mean, hello, Bambi?
yeah.
We've been talking about Snow White. It's like they're poison apples and evil.
That's another problem, though. It's like in today's day and age, when they remake stuff like that, it's over sanitized. They want to strip all the great, dramatic essence of it because, the kids might be traumatized by it or they might be bothered. It's like, well, good. It's supposed to be hitting those beats.
Well, that's what makes it like memorable. The never-ending story.
Mm-hmm.
Trauma. It's right
Yeah.
there. Is so much of it is just absolute that. But
Yeah, I'm still interested in seeing the Snow White film, but that will be out of morbid curiosity, and that will be on Disney Plus streaming in a few weeks or months.
Exactly. I think that we're on the same page on that. So I think we're probably at about that time. Is this wrapped up most of the things that we were planning on discussing, but for the disaster of the daylight savings time.
Oh, well, the only other thing is that Tony Gilroy says he's not going to, come back to do any more Star Wars because he's like, I've been doing this for 10 years now and I want to do other things.
Well, the man's like 80 years old, is he not?
Yeah.
70?
Something like that.
It's like, well, duh. Is all right, let's see. What was it? Pixar was bridging the gap and telling a story that you would want to ask questions your parents. Yeah. All good animation does, like, have things for the adult and the children, is my favorite go-to when discussing that is classic Warner Brothers animation. Like, you can sit down as an adult and watch Bugs Bunny, and it's slapstick humor and bright visuals for the children, but it's got that other messages and like just kind of the looking into the camera and wink, wink, nudge, nudge for the adults.
And speaking of which, they are looking into potentially selling the entire Looney Tunes IP, which is how batshit crazy things are going on.
Because they just pulled it all. They took it all.
They pulled all the old Looney Tunes shit. It's like, I can't imagine how much hate Zaslav is going to get. It's like Looney Tunes and Warner Brothers are synonymous.
Yes.
It's like, let's piss that away to have more of your garbage reality TV shit on the service. It's like, you
cannot remove Looney Tunes from Warner Brothers. I mean, that's like, you might as well sell the name Warner Brothers with it. If you wanted to do that, okay, here, you can have Warner Brothers, and we're going to call this new company something else completely batshit. But the name Warner Brothers has to stay with Looney Tunes. It not.
It's like we're trying to dissect how bad things are going with Disney and how they could they could quite easily correct things and, not have the boat rocked so much and set a course. But there's a decision, and it feels like there are a lot of external factors that influence the C-suite that makes these decisions and chooses the financial direction of the company. And we know that shouldn't influence the creative direction ever, but it's what these big corporations do, right? At least Disney is acknowledging that Snow White and these animated classics are central to its identity, even if it feels like they're having an identity crisis. Still better than Warner Brothers. It's like, you wouldn't take Snow White and Mickey Mouse out of Disney, but you're trying to do that with Bugs Bunny and Warner Brothers.
It's apparently the thing.
Completely nuts.
But yeah, I don't get it. I don't understand. I mean, I get that. What, the last time that you used them in a property, like their new remake of the Warner Brothers cartoon show is horrid, and I am in protest and will not watch the new basketball movie. Can't help me. Toon Squad.
Space Jam 2.
Yeah, Space Jam 2. That was awful.
Won't do it.
The Day the Earth Blew Up was fun though. That was the new Looney Tunes movie.
Oh, I hadn't even.
I was about to ask about.
Oh yeah, it's in theaters.
Yeah,
it got a theatrical release from Ketchup Entertainment because it was one of the things that was made for HBO Max, and then they're like, no, we're not dumping this on Max, and they shopped it around to other streamers. Nobody bought it, so they debuted it at a festival last summer, and this Ketchup Entertainment picked it up, and it made 1.9 million from just Germany and Switzerland alone last year without any marketing. So they gave it a wide release in the States, and it's about Daffy Duck and Porky Pig having to prevent this alien invasion or whatever, alien takeover involving bubblegum. And it's really funny and fun. It's like an hour and a half, but they didn't give it any marketing whatsoever. And they're like,
well, obviously,
they're now looking to buy. Ketchup is currently in negotiations to buy Coyote versus Acme from Warner Brothers as well for 50 million if they get it. If they do get it, that would get a theatrical release next year.
Yeah, that's what Chris was just saying right there. Coyote versus Acme, but
I don't know if they got it yet because I know they're talking about selling it. But yeah, it's like this is insane that Warner Brothers doesn't see under Zaslav doesn't see any value in the Looney Tunes IP to do any. And if that's because of how god awful the Space Jam movie was, that it must not have any value. It's like that the stupidity. It's like, dude, that you're right, Naladoc. Ketchup doesn't have any. Yeah, Ketchup Entertainment does not have any marketing money. I don't know where they're going to find the money to buy Coyote versus Acme if the fact that they're negotiating must mean they have money from somebody somewhere. But if they actually go through with selling this like they did the other, that seems to suggest that they are getting rid of Looney Tunes. It just shows how stupid David Zaslav is. It's like, he does not like he merged the company with Discovery, dumped all of Discovery's debt onto Warner Brothers, canceled a bunch of stuff, wrote off $19 billion, brought down the debt by $19 billion. Yes. But now he's going to do that further by getting rid of like the core, like Looney Tunes is Warner Brothers core IP, and you're going to just piss that away. And it's like, no, right. I think that this has to stop.
Yeah. Looney Tunes is more than, the next you would be saying you're getting rid of like DC,
Yeah. And I don't think that's ever going to happen, but
right. But would you have ever thought they're going to get rid of Looney Tunes at Warner Brothers?
No,
I would actually do something with it because it's been kind of. It hasn't been dormant forever because they have done various TV shows over the years, but they haven't had a big comeback in pop culture as much. Like they're not. But that's the problem of them not hiring people to actually shepherd it. Like you need somebody good who's talented, great animators to shepherd the Looney Tunes universe. Like I'm sure Lord and Miller, if you gave them a Looney Tunes movie, they do a great job with that, or people like that who actually love the content. But
the level of goofiness in the new animation in their new series and the voice cast is not.
So Chris Forsyth says it's happened. Let me look that up. See that they've bought it.
Oh yeah, they've gotten yeah, they may have bought it because like Warner doesn't care, and it was probably like $19.95. Like, here, hand me a 20, and you can have this. But
let's see, what is no that they spent.
I don't know.
Let's see. Yep, it looks like they sold it.
So the moral of the story is we need more of the. Tying this back, here's the unifying part for today. Tying it back to, we need more guys on a computer with free animation software making movies about cats in a flood. Okay, is just take your passion project and put it out there. Do it, because this hopefully will be the future of film. Is people doing what they love and putting stuff out there. Because guess what was a passion project? THX. Guess what was a passion project? American Graffiti. Guess what was a passion project? The Star Wars.
Yep.
Yeah. And on that note, I came across a little image today saying that it was 50 years ago, as of yesterday, that shooting began on Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a nice little anniversary that you don't
forget. That was not corporate big movie house making decisions when it is now. That's where it came from. But it was like struggling to sell everything that you own and sell and pass away whatever rights that you could. But good on you for keeping the merchandise.
50 years ago yesterday, you said?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's pretty good.
But,
1976, 22nd March.
But I think that is a good place to wrap up and end for the day. Is we have been going long, and we love to go long because when we have great comments and stuff, it always brings us to a better place here, and that's why we're enjoying doing this live right now. So I think March has got a fifth week, doesn't it? Does March have a fifth week? Fifth weekend. So you're not going to see any content next Sunday. No Jedi Archives, no us. So we will be back not in 2 weeks, but 3 weeks there on the math. And that might be Celebration. So there may be some weirdness that happens in there. But you will see the unifying force again, and we will do our best to have it live and in color right here on this channel so we can have more great discussions with all of you out there in the chats. So until the next time.
Yep. May the
Thanks
force
so much
be
for watching. May the force
Thank
be
you.
with you.
always.